Good evening. I'd like to call to order the adjourned meeting of the Watertown City Council. It's Monday, July 17, 2017. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Kristen.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Okay, Albertson.
Here.
Bueller.
Here.
Danforth.
Here.
Lallam.
Here.
Manti. Here. Roby.
Here.
Solemn.
Here.
Thorson.
Here.
Vilhauer.
Here.
And Y.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
The first item on the agenda is oath of office for Council Member Ward D. Josh Y.
Councilman Y, if you would, join me up front, please. Thank you.
Yes. That's John. If you would, Councilman Y, please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I,
Josh Y,
Josh Y,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same,
and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties of office
discharge the duties of office
of alderman which I am about to enter.
of alderman of which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Welcome, Josh.
Thank you.
The second item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion and second? for
So
approval?
moved.
Motion by Glenn, second by Beth. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The third item is approval of the agenda. I would like to remove item 17, which is authorization for the mayor to sign a naming rights agreement with First Premier Bank for the new softball baseball complex, and move item 14 forward to become item 5A. Is there a motion and second to approve?
Second.
Moved by John and second by Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, election of officers.
I will make a motion to nominate Don Rowe for president.
I can second.
Is there any discussion or other motion?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Bruce as president, please.
I'll second that.
Any other nominations? Did you catch the motion and seconds? Okay. Could you state them out loud?
Okay, we have Roby and then Bueller for president. Am I right? Okay, so then I will hand these out. You guys will place your votes, and then I'll take them back. Okay?
Second.
Okay, so after the vote, president will be Bruce Bueller.
Okay, I'll entertain nominations for vice president.
I'll nominate Glenn.
I'd like to nominate Danforth.
Any other nominations? Okay.
You should do this more like Vanna.
Okay, so that was a tie. So we'll be doing it again.
We just said, have we ever had a tie before?
Oh, you do? That's right.
Aren't you the tiebreaker, Sarah?
Hey, Josh, you look pretty good there, man. Nice shirt. Yeah. I got neat food on.
No matter which one of you guys wins, whatever, I still want this.
Now I'm out of paper.
I want this, no matter how we range around, I want this.
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to stay here.
Me too. Me too. I'm gonna make that request.
Okay, based on the secondary election, it is Glenn Billhauer. So.
Okay, we had a motion and a second on the floor for election of officers. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 5 will be broken into Part A and Part B. Part A will be formerly number 14. A resolution amending Resolution number 17-01, providing for the salaries of municipal employees for the year 2017. Resolution number 17-21. I just want to say out loud that I have no reason to believe that there was any ill intent on the part of any of the council in putting this resolution forward. I think it's a case of miscommunication or poor communication, and I intend to give the council the benefit of the doubt that there's no ill intent. With that, since this has to do with my salary, I am hereby recusing myself and handing the gavel to the council president.
Thanks, folk. I get the pleasure of addressing this issue this evening. Obviously, this has been a heated and emotional issue, but I do have a couple of things I'd like to say. But first, I would entertain a motion for approval of the resolution.
So moved.
And do I have a second? Motion by Mike, second by
I'll second.
Dan. Okay, thank you. Now, I would like to open that up to discussion for the council, but I do have a couple of words that I'd like to say before we move further. I've been in this spot 6 years, and I know a lot of you have heard this story before. I was on the Planning Commission for probably 25. There's a lot of folks that have put in a lot of time in boards and committees that weren't involved with the city council. I feel extremely fortunate to serve, like Randy said earlier, if any of you were here earlier for Randy's comments. This group is an honorable, honest group. I don't think there's any hidden agendas in this group. This is by far we've had some good councils, but this is the best council I've had the opportunity ever to work with. There's a tremendous amount of talent and experience in this group. And I will tell you that I don't believe for 1 second that anybody here on this council, and first off, we don't typically put anything on the agenda. Nobody here was associated with putting this resolution on the agenda. This all of a sudden we're being sexist, and we are there's retribution because of the new mayor. I believe, and I think I can say this for everybody on this council, we all want to work and do the best we can to make her successful. Because if she's successful, our community is successful. That's I think what we want. And a lot of folks don't understand all of the hours, all the time that these people put in to the various issues that we encounter on a weekly basis. And I honestly, folks, I'm a little bit hurt by what I've heard from some of the folks in the public, the accusations that we would do something like that. That bothers me. And this is a small community, we're friends, we're neighbors, we were all elected in our wards by the people of our wards. And we were elected to do the right thing. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that we have. We all have the best interests of this community at heart, to a soul on this group. Now, I don't know these two new guys very good yet, but I'm sure they will. So that's all I have to say. I would entertain any additional discussion from anyone else on the council.
I've got a question for you, Justin. If we reject this motion, then the salary structure that we approved back in January by the resolution 1701 or whatever, does that stay as is, or do we have to affirmatively have a motion to re-adopt that for Mayor Karen?
Councilman, I'm glad you asked that question. My understanding, looking at Resolution 1701 and looking at the operative provisions of 1721, would indicate that if the council were to vote no on the Resolution 1721, that Resolution 1701 will be effective. So what that means is a no vote would mean that the mayor's salary would remain at $80,437.20, as opposed to what Resolution 1721 calls for, which is a revision of that salary, annual salary, to $69,360.
Any other comments by anyone on the council in the matter before us?
I have a couple, actually. I have talked with a couple of people on this. It is, in my opinion, that it was not done deliberately towards Sarah, or as a vindictive personality or a vindictive towards the election results. It was simply trying to get a structure in place so that we're not constantly keep raising the system, raising it up, which I have no problem if that's what we feel that's what we're going to be doing. I'm okay with that. But eventually, if we keep adding increases onto increases, the election is not done based on qualifications. It's done by who gets elected. Honestly, I looked them up today on the state Secretary of State's website. It was simply you have to be a citizen in Watertown for 3 months. That's the only qualifications, and 18 years old, which is for any office. So I did look at that, and I appreciate everyone's comments. I appreciate the emails and phone calls. I have no problem taking that. I just wanted to get that out there, that this is not against any particular person, period.
Anyone else, any additional comments?
I guess I would have a comment. I've been on the council for 2 years now, and I tell you, this issue has always concerned me, and as far as struggling with the mayor's salary. The mayor and the council are the only positions that there is not a structure in place whereby the salary is automatically adjusted or approved every year. We essentially set our salary, we set the mayor's salary, and I've always been uncomfortable with that. I've got to vote against this because I think the salary needs to stay where it is. But I do commend the finance office for bringing a suggestion to us that gives us some idea where the mayor's position would fall into place relative to the rest of the city employees and the department heads. So I commend. I don't agree with it, but I do commend them for coming forth with suggestions so we have some relative idea what the mayor's salary is relative to those that are on a structured salary. Because like I say, I'm always concerned with, it's a very subjective decision every year on our part as far as what we do with the mayor's salary.
Just to comment also, I think it's important to understand that going back to when Mayor Williams took charge, he did away with the Public Works Director. And since then, then Mayor Thorson, and now with Mayor Karen, that mayor is essentially wearing two hats. It's mayor and Public Works Director. And there's another debate, should we have a Public Works Director, but I think it's important to understand that there are two hats being worn at this point.
I think the intentions were very good. I think we task our finance office with holding those dollars. They're the gatekeeper of our dollars, our tax dollars. I agree that to bring this forward for discussion, I think is good. I've always been under the assumption that whatever a mayor is coming into office with is what the previous office holder had for a salary. I didn't know anything about that it would be any different than that until this whole issue came up. I do agree with Glenn that we do need to maybe have a more structured look at this to help guide us for the future. But from day one and seeing this, I did not support and would not support and will not support what was proposed. So I like Bruce, and I've been quite vocal. I like Bruce. I've been very disheartened and disappointed in a lot of ways lately. And this one has been right up there. And we need and you have my commitment, and I know you have the other commitment of these individuals here, we need to get ourselves on track as a community, and that's not just these 10 or 11 people behind this desk. The real leadership in this community comes from out there. This community is a reflection of what the leadership is within our community. So we all need to get on the same page, going in the same direction, and get ourselves to where we are respectful and trusting of each other. And I hope that we are able to do that. And I hope tonight is a big step in us moving in that direction. Or we will continue down this path of being very divided as a community, because we are very divided. So each one of us in this room, and those that are out on Facebook land or those that are out watching it, we all have a part of this. And I would ask that we all move in that direction, because this is a very, very great community. I wasn't born here. I've lived here for 30-some years. It's a wonderful community. And I hope we start acting like a wonderful community. So thank you.
I think I would just add that I have appreciated lots of the calls that I received and emails. Lots of people said, "What's this all about?" And you know what? If we could get more people to do that more often, we'd be a lot smarter in our community as to the issues that are going on. But oftentimes, that doesn't happen. People just say, well, you know what, can't do anything about it. Well, look at the crowd tonight here. I mean, we usually have the department heads and that's it. And so there must be other issues in the community that are relevant to people. And so to those of you who are positive in your questions and accepted their answer, and I hope we're encouraged to come tonight in case there are other things, thank you for your interest in the community.
The only other comment is I think the last time that we had this many people was when we voted on the MMA fighting. Otherwise, we haven't had that many people here since then. So,
and I doubt very much we'll have near this many at our budget.
Yeah.
All right, any additional discussion? Does anyone else have any comments?
I would just have him clarify the motion. Just state the motion so it's clear.
The motion, to my knowledge, was to approve the resolution.
Before we go any further, I just would like to ask a favor of the audience tonight. And if I could I get a show of hands for the folks that would not support this resolution? Let's see, 1, 2. Okie dokie. All right, that's all I have. If there are no other comments, then I would entertain a vote. So we have a motion and a second. Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say aye.
Aye.
That motion does not carry. All right. Thank you. And
Melu. Feel free to stay around.
No, no. The next item on the agenda is 5B, Standing Council Policies, Resolution Number 13-17. This is for information purposes only. Justin?
Thank you, Mayor. This is for informational purposes only because the City Council has adopted these resolutions in the past as a standing policy, and they, per statute, are to be updated every year unless the council, as it has chosen to do here, has input them in resolution form, this back in 2013. So this is just for informational purposes. No action needs to be taken. It's just a recitation of what would otherwise be an annual ordinance or resolution approved by this council. That includes the official paper, as well as other provisions that are more housekeeping measures. But I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Hearing no questions, we'll move on to item number 6, application for a transfer of ownership and location of a retail on-sale liquor license from Little T's, Inc., doing business as Mr. T's at 1300 9th Avenue Southeast, to Investment Opportunities Unlimited, Inc., at 964 North Lake Drive. The license will be inactive when transferred. There's a public hearing, so I'd like to open that now. Do we have anyone present to speak about this subject? Please come to the microphone. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion and second.
Second.
Moved by Bueller and second by Danforth. All in favor, say aye. Oh, sorry, discussion.
Yep. We're number 6, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I just want to recuse myself from 6 and 7 for potential conflict of interest.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7, application for a transfer of ownership and location of a retail on-off sale malt beverage with video lottery license from Little T's, Inc., doing business as Mr. T's at 1300 9th Avenue Southeast, to 4 Holdings, LLC, doing business as Westside Laundry at 7 8th Street Southwest. We have a public hearing. I'll open that now. If you would like to speak about this, please come to the microphone. Please state your name.
I'm Will Morlock, and I live at 905 West Kemp Avenue. And I'm here, I would like to voice my opposition to the proposed casino bar lounge at West Side Laundry location. This is a residential area with many of the residents being in the lower income group and a lot of VOTEC students living in the rental units that are in that area. Many of the people using the laundry cannot afford buying a washing machine, dryers, and the lure of lottery machines is not something that is needed while they're doing laundry. The argument used at the zoning board was to provide some opportunity for other activities for the people that are using the laundry machines and be there so that they can take their clothes out because their clothes are being left in the machines. That's a pretty weak argument at best for any reason to have a casino. The lure of to use casino machines is to hold the person to the machine as long as they have money in their pocket to feed the machine. and, oh, my laundry is done, I better leave, is not an excuse. They're not going to leave their machine if that's going on, especially if it's a hot machine, or the idea that the next dollar will provide the winner. Only when the users are out of money will they remember to get their laundry. In too many cases, it is money that should be used by these people to buy food and clothing for their children. This neighborhood does not want or need a casino. This site is also located within less than a half a block of a certified daycare preschool. This type of business should not be allowed in a residential area. The residents in the area have fought to prevent this type of business a few years ago, and the feeling has not changed since that time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Oh, you go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jason Getty.
I'm Shane Thorstensen.
I'm the owner of Westside Laundromat, and we together have 4 holdings, and we have purchased the inactive license from Mr. T's. And our plan is to create a patron lounge in the laundromat, just as our competitor has, to stay competitive, and create a space where they can hang out while they wash their clothes, because there is plenty of it where people come and leave their laundry in the machines, and they leave for an hour, 2 hours, and my big machines that are the most popular, that I have very few of, are always hung up, and then people will leave. So that is one of our greatest concerns as to why we want to create this space, this patron lounge. And we are zoned C3. We went through all of that. It's already been zoned. The daycare, you cannot be within 600 feet of a school, and daycare is not considered a school, and they are in C3 as well.
Do you have any intentions of? Do you have any intentions of selling food there, or is it?
We will probably do some light things like pizzas and snacks.
Okay.
To just offer.
And then, what about hours of operation?
We planned on. Currently, we're 8 to 8, and we planned on. For that area, it won't be open until probably 10 in the morning or so, and then we were going to go till 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then keep it the same on Sunday at 7 p.m.
Yeah,
So-
we're not going to be open any later, to try to draw in the rough crowd or anything like that. It's going to be mostly for the people that are there. Jason sees a lot of city traffic, especially in the summer, from like construction workers, other people that are trying to do laundry on the weekends. They want a place to hang out, so we're trying to open that up for them.
So is this going to be where I can walk from my wash machine straight into the casino, or is it going to be a separate entrance on the side of the casino? How is it going to be?
It is, I don't have the floor plan. I mean, we had it at the planning commission, but it is a 20 by 20 space that's inside of the existing building that will be walled off, and where you cannot see into it, but you could see out of one particular area for a window, and it'll have its separate door.
And we'll have somebody fully staffed, so it's not like if you bring your kids down, you're doing your laundry, the kids can't just walk in there. I mean, you're going to have to be 21 to be in there. And we're also going to set up things outside of the lounge area, like vending machines and things for the kids, like some of the games and stuff like that. So it's not going to be just a free-for-all. Anybody can come in there. And like I said, we're going to have somebody staff there.
And that's one of my other issues is I can't currently afford to have somebody there all day long. So this would allow me to have somebody there cleaning all day and be there as security as well. Because we do have problems with loitering sometimes, and a little bit of vandalism where the people will come in and they've wrecked some signs and throw cigarette butts all over. And so I'd like to really contain that and keep it a little bit cleaner around there.
Jason, did you say that at the Plan Commission that there was a comparable situation on the east
Yes.
side of Watertown, and that's why you're
Correct.
considering that?
Yep, that was one of our points, that there's the exact same thing in town that offers the same amenities that we would like to.
Shane, has this been vetted for the proximity to churches and schools? I mean, I'm assuming that's part of what the Plan Commission has reviewed?
Right. They did review the zoning and the appropriate, I mean, the caveat here is primarily zoning. Even if they were next to a church or next to a daycare, there's the C zoning is adequate for what they're requesting. So actually a different concern that was discussed in a much more detail is parking. And we did recognize that there are challenges to extra parking and access, but the Planning Commission did vet all of those issues and did move it forward with a recommendation. So that's
what was the resolve on the parking?
There wasn't a final resolve on the parking.
How short would you estimate that we are, Shane, for parking space?
Substantially. I mean, there's 3 commercial businesses in one building and probably enough spaces for 25 cars, something like that.
Would it be pretty safe to say that even without this, no one's meeting the parking requirements? Is that fair?
Yes, and that was part of the discussion at the Planning Commission, that there really isn't room for that to improve even if we requested it.
What was the Planning Commission's rationale for moving this forward without enough parking space?
Primarily because it fits the zoning.
Mayor, if I could ask a point of privilege?
Sure.
This is just to provide a little bit of perspective on the legal standards to assist you in a decision here. There are really 2 protocols at play here, one for an alcohol license, another for an alcohol license with video lottery. And as we discussed at some point, at some length, with the Target concern, there are 2 concerns with regard to an alcohol license: the location and the persons seeking the license. Basically, any of the concerns that might devolve from those 2 issues. As for video lottery, there are ultimately 6 concerns that can be addressed by the council. The first being the number of establishments currently licensed for video lottery. That can factor into the council's decision. The proximity of the business to other establishments licensed for video lottery. That's another. The third is the type of business and manner in which the applicant proposes to operate it, which combines portions of the 2 criteria for alcohol licenses generally. The fourth is the location of the business in relation to other businesses, residential areas, or activities within the same general area. The fifth is the extent to which minors frequent a business connected to the one proposed. And the sixth is the effect the proposed business has on economic development.
Thank you.
Jason, I have a question. So will the kids be allowed to come in there if their parents are playing video lottery?
No, you wouldn't be able to, because you'd have to be 21 to enter that establishment, that area.
The kids would be left in the laundry rooms, so to speak?
Well, I mean, right, I guess. They can't, a minor would not be able to go into that part of it, just like they can't at the other one.
Do you have anything else to say?
I don't think so.
Okay.
If there's no further questions.
All right.
I'm rather nervous about this. and I shouldn't be because we've spoken on this before. And
Ruth,
our area.
could you say your name, please?
Oh, my name is Ruth Swenson,
Thank
and
you.
I live at 801 West Kemp, which is right across the street from where this would be located. We have the distinction of being the highest crime rate in the city of Watertown in our area. And when the moms and dads come to do their laundry, moms and dads will bring their kids. And some of them are pretty small to be left running around without supervision. And you could have a lot of children running around without supervision. And it could also mean when mom and dad leave the laundromat after drinking their favorite beverage, that will put these children at risk again with a buzzed driver. People who can least afford to spend their money in this way will be tempted to do so. And we are an extremely low-income area, and we raise our families, and we have our homes there. And for another thing, this business just does not fit in with the businesses that are there right now. We have a tax service, a state-certified daycare, a restaurant, an investment firm, and of course the laundromat. We also have a docking business with boats. We're not an affluent part of town, however, we do have homes, we do raise children, and we are comfortable in our residential area right now. And I would ask that you please do not allow this kind of business in our area to downgrade our area, just especially the malt beverage and the video lottery. Thank you.
Ruth, could I ask you a quick question? Just if you want to go back to the mic there, did you experience any negative issues when you had the tavern across the street?
Not with just the malt beverage, no. But then they weren't busy at all. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Not like the laundromat gets once in a while.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Would anyone else like to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion and second for approval. Moved by Danforth, second by Vilhauer. Is there any discussion?
I've heard, I listened to the Board of Adjustment meeting here recently where this was discussed, heard some pretty compelling arguments against, from the neighborhood as well there. Mr. Morlock reached out to me as well. Ruth, I appreciate your comments. I've got some real concerns about this, but I guess I'm going to go back to what you said, Justin. I mean, from a legal standpoint, where are we at as far as either approving or not approving this from your perspective? I don't want to put you in the spot, but you raised the issue a while ago.
Absolutely, and there's a reason why I did, Councilman, so I'm happy to address it further. The key is to look at what statute allows for the council to decide in terms of criteria, what it can consider in making this decision, a recommendation approving or disapproving the license. So the criteria that I had given initially, the two criteria that apply to alcohol licenses, generally location and the applicant themselves. Video lottery then has an additional 6 criteria, some of which overlap with those first 2 criteria for alcohol licenses.
Can I stop, go back on the 2 criteria, so the location and the applicant themselves.
Correct.
The location is not an issue? I mean...
So the issue addressed by the Plan Commission, or excuse me, by the Board of Adjustment for conditional use was bar tavern conditional use. There is criteria in ordinance that must be met in order to obtain that conditional use for bar tavern, and that was by virtue of it being a C3 zoning district, which takes it out of the distance from certain schools and whatnot. So that was ultimately the item that was before the Board of Adjustment. Other concerns about location, much like some of the concerns that were expressed at the Target license hearing, those are on a different level, if you will, or are broader with regard to location.
So, Justin, just for my information, we already had a conditional use, I would assume, with the former tavern across the street, correctly?
To my knowledge, yes. In order for them to be able to operate without knowing the specific history, yes.
Sure. So, but there is a precedent already.
Would you feel that they're in the location aspect of it? Are we out of our realm or whatever it were? Can we consider other location considerations other than the ones that were the conditional use and those other kind of things?
Correct, Councilwoman.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I will ask for council action. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, roll call. Albertson?
Yes.
Bueller?
Yes.
Danforth?
Yes.
Lallam? Yes.
Manti?
No.
Roby?
Abstain?
Oh, that's right, sorry. Solom?
Yes.
Thorson?
No.
Philhauer? No. And Y?
No.
Okay. Motion passes.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is number 8, second reading of ordinance number 17-27, amending Title 21 of the revised ordinances of the City of Watertown, referencing outside storage and display requirements for property at Lake Kempesca. I'll open the public hearing. If anyone has anything to say about this, please come forward to the microphone. Ken, you can go ahead and give us just a brief.
Can you fix the air conditioning?
Well, again, this is the second reading for the ordinance for the lake outside parking storage. We pretty much went over this thing. I don't think we've made any additional changes since the first reading. Basically just here for any questions or answers anybody else might have with regard to this issue. Again, we're going to enact this, or hopefully we'll enact this, and it'll become a trial and error situation for probably 6 months until next year. If we see notice and issues that we have with this currently, we'll just notify the people. There won't be no tickets issued, so they can get used to this ordinance. And again, we might find issues that we're going to have to tweak or modify if certain issues come up that we didn't cover or understand good enough with regard to the lake. I mean, there is one provision in here due to the number 10, due to the uniqueness of the lake lots, it will be the building official's responsibility to determine if the storage meets the intent of the ordinance. We left a pretty large gray area in here because, again, there is just a lot of particulars with the lake that you're not going to have with the residential area in town.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second for approval. Moved by Danforth, second by Thorson.
Mayor, I do have a couple of just comments, questions, and you know, the lake is a creature all its own in regards to the front yard's the backyard's the front yard. And I go back at all the discussions that we had when we went through this in the, I'll call it city proper, non-lake area.
City proper, correct.
And the impetus behind that was public safety, and it was also the aesthetics.
Correct.
And then also our ability to manage that from an enforcement standpoint. At the lake, my guess is those same things are true. We look at safety, we look at aesthetics, and we look at enforceability. The difference is, in my opinion, is we really aren't doing what we had hoped to accomplish with the city proper area of getting stuff that the public sees every day when they drive by out of sight per se, because that's the backyard around the lake. So the only thing I would question on this right now is I would actually, and we may want to consider changing where we have the requirement that they can't have it in their front yard, because in all honesty, if we're looking at safety and we're looking at aesthetics at the lake, it's better off in their front yard than it is pull it all back and put it on the backyard. I think everything else fits to me, but it doesn't make sense that we're now pulling it out of there. They got to be out of the front yard on whatever dates it is, and now it's by the road where it, or where it's visible, and certainly more accessible where it potentially there could be danger. So the one thing that I would maybe consider is maybe we need to pull the requirement that it be removed from the front yard. The only people that are going to see it in the winter are going to be the ice fishermen. And that's just my only thoughts with it, is some consideration or discussion about that.
That's an excellent point. Anyone else?
I would just ask of Ken and I guess my colleagues up here, have you gotten any feedback from anyone since the first reading a couple weeks ago?
No. Can't hear my head right now.
Nobody up here either has? I haven't either.
You'll hear from them when they get a ticket.
Next year.
Anyone else? Not sure I closed the public hearing yet, so I will do so now and ask for council action. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
So we're just gonna then take that suggestion and tweak it as our,
Right,
as
if
we go
issues
down,
come
go down
forward,
roadways.
right.
I just think it should be considered because it really is contrary to what our goal was.
Yep, no, very good.
So-
Like I said, we'll see if there's any other tweaks, and when we get to that next point, 6 months down the road or whatever, we'll review that. Thank you.
Excellent.
And we've made a
Thanks, Ken.
lot of progress that way in town,
Yep.
doing it that way in town. So thanks for your work, Kenny.
Item 9, second reading of ordinance number 17-31, amending district boundaries by rezoning lots 8 and 9, Block 2, North Lake Drive addition from R1 Single Family Residential District to RG Residential Garage District. I'd like to open the public hearing.
My name is Pat Mahold. I live at 616 North Lake Drive. There's a development on the other side of what was all old Highway 19, called.
Ray, could you put my screen on? We can see his lot.
Pardon me. There these lots on the north side of the thing. That's a development that was laid out many years ago by Harvey View, and if you see the green, and then you see a road on the back left side, yeah, that's called Pheasant Lane, and then there's a development on the other side the same way, as far as lots go, right in there, and they'll never be. They've all been laid out as R1. There'll never be R1 there, simply because of the sewer and water problems and the road. Nobody's willing to step up and do the road. So I found out about the residential garage availability. So that's my request, to put a garage in that area across the way, and that's why I'm here.
That's 2 garages, Pat? Is it
Not
2?
necessarily. I've had people ask me if I would sell, some of that, and up till this point, I haven't. But I see no farther east. There's 1 or 2 that have been done under that new ruling. So, I could put 2 in there very easy. The lots are 100 by 150 plus. On the back side, they're about 210 feet, and on that Pheasant Lane, on Highway 139, they're approximately 200 feet. But just to, I have a neighbor as an example that wants to, he's in the construction business, and he would like to be able to drive his trailer from his work into a garage to protect it. And, you know, he's asked me whether I would sell something, and I said, yeah, I'll consider it, but I gotta get the zoning changed first, you know. So, right now, there's nothing but docks stored over there and boat
But
lifts and.
can I add clarification, Shane, on this? We have our requirements for frontage, and I believe on this particular case, the calculation for that, you have used both the North Lake Drive plus the road that isn't developed on the west side or whatever direction that is, northwest. Is that correct?
Correct. That's
Okay.
been consistent with the most recent, I think this is the third time the RG district has been used in this vicinity since I've arrived, which is just over 2 years ago. So we used a consistent method of reviewing those. So there is just and thank you, Mr. Mahold, you did a very good job of doing my explanations for me. So he does have 200 feet of frontage along Lake Drive North and 220 along Pheasant Drive. So that is one of the criteria. One of the other criteria is that it be a minimum of 1 acre in size, which he is falling just short. He is at 7/10 of an acre. One of the other requirements is that he gets the majority of the landowners adjacent to sign off on that, which that threshold is at 55%. He has met that requirement. So really the only requirement he's falling short on is the 1 acre. And the Plan Commission did weigh that out in their review and vetting discussion and ultimately recommended approval for your consideration.
Well, but where I was going with this is hearing Pat's discussion of potentially selling some of that land, that would be not allowed if it fell then below the calculated 300-foot threshold, correct?
No,
we couldn't
'cause
approve this.
We're
and
talking
then-
zoning, not ownership. This is a zoning change, not an ownership change. So they could zone the whole region over there, RG, and still sell them off as individual lots that allow RG construction.
Shane, could you zoom out a little bit and
Yeah.
show the zoning to show where we have other
Sure.
RG district? Because if he's adjacent to another RG, that counts in the area.
No, I'm not adjacent to
So there's an RG lot up here in the corner. That's been done since my arrival here. This one was done prior to my tenure here. I think those are the three in that, or this would be the third in that area.
Okay, so the zoning would be fixed at.
Correct. This
The
is all
RG.
about zoning, not land ownership.
Okay.
Shane, what was the extra about Lot 10? What was our conversation about that? Was that a road?
Oh, Grouse Street has been vacated, so Grouse Street here is not a street access point anymore. The property's been split between the adjoining properties.
So he can count that as part of his property, or in the tabulation at least.
Yes.
So this is it's a little, you said it was,
Actually, that might push him right to the 1 acre threshold. I don't know if that, I can't say how that was measured, but
is that 1 acre for both lots then, or just
total.
combined? Total of 1
The,
acre?
the threshold for the RG conversion was intended to be 1 acre.
And that
For
could-
the,
and that
for
can
the
have multiple-
zoning.
But that can have multiple lots
It can
in there?
have 1 lot or it can have 10 lots, but it's to avoid a spot zone.
Yeah, okay.
I think that was the conversation of that road would be enough for that acre.
If that's vacated, do you own that, Mr. Mahold?
No, the original, to the right of that, where you have the pointer, that would be lot 10, I believe. No, the other way.
Just a second, let me get some clarity here.
Okay.
So-
Cross Street.
So Grouse, our record show was vacated, and these two lots are the two lots that Mr. Mahold does own.
What happened is on that lot next to that, where that dock is there, the city had dedicated in the original plat was, there was a, what do I want to say that?
If you look at the,
That's where the original road on the left of this property, not that one, but the right there, the westerly, so many feet were dedicated to a road. That was abandoned, and the city took over Grouse Street. So Grouse Street is now just a property owned by the city.
okay, thank you for that clarification.
Pardon?
So thank you for the clarification.
Anyone else that would like to speak about this issue? Seeing none, I'll close.
Sorry, just, can you give me a little more flavor on how the planning commission talked? What was their general discussion?
They felt that it was reasonably close to meeting all of the criteria. It does fall short on the 1 acre, but he clearly got the approval of his adjacent landowners, which was a huge factor. And we've been recognizing both frontages along Pheasant Lane and Lake Drive as applying towards those requests. And so we've been consistent with this one with the other two that were done.
Close the public hearing.
Motion to approve.
And got a motion from Dan. Do we have a second? Second from Beth. Council action, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
I'd like to take a 5-minute break, just in case anybody needs one, and we'll come right back.
You don't want it, don't put it in.
Okay, 5 minutes is up. We're going to continue on. The next item on the agenda is number 10, proposed lease agreement with Chris Hanton to hay Lot 1 and a portion of Lot 9 of the Hanton Industrial Park addition. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone that wants to speak about this? Justin, is there anything you want to say about the lease agreement?
I'd be happy to, Mayor. Just briefly, members of the council will maybe recall who were here last year that a similar agreement was entered into with Chris Hanton for haying certain portions of city-owned property to the southeast of town. And, didn't really change much on this agreement. It's a 1/3, 2/3 crop share. He's providing round bales of hay and has provided that to the Bramble Park Zoo per the last year's terms, and decided that this year the same terms would be acceptable. One thing that I was asked to, and I think makes sense, the Bramble Park Zoo is actually pretty good with big round bales, and so maybe next year, should this be renegotiated again, should the city still have this land, we might ask for square bales to be the method of payment, given their relative supply of round bales. So if you have any questions about specifics, I'm happy to provide them. This is a rather straightforward lease, and to my knowledge, Mr. Hanton has been a good steward of city land.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion and second for approval.
So moved.
Adam and Beth. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for council action. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, proposed ground lease agreement with Scott Thompson for private hangar lease located at the regional airport. Todd, I take it this is an authorization for the mayor to sign?
Correct.
Okay. Want to just give us a little overview?
Sure. So this is a 75 by 75 foot hangar. He would rent or lease the ground from us. He would own the building. So it's 15 cents a square foot. We've done many of these. This is in our new area where we put the taxi lane in a couple years ago, if you remember that. So I believe this leads us down to the last 2 spots available.
So is this an existing building, or is
No.
this, he would build this building?
He would build this building, correct.
I take it we have requirements that they have to match the building next to it type of deal?
It all has to be approved by the airport manager.
Okay.
And follow, obviously the city ordinances and the federal FAA guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Todd, just a question in general, with all the increased traffic out there, I mean, the visibility, I mean, the maintenance, the visibility of the, surrounding structures, I mean, they will be being well maintained. I mean, is there any issue with visibility and what it looks like out there?
There's not. These are all areas where they store, multi-hundreds of thousands of dollar aircraft. So they maintain their buildings very well.
Any other comments?
Not on that. Todd, just curious, what's the airport? When are we expected to be done with that new runway?
Substantial completion's August 15th.
Oh, good.
And full completion September 15th.
Good.
I'd entertain a motion and a second to authorize the mayor. Motion by Bruce, second by Dan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Todd. Item number 12, first reading of ordinance number 17-25, amending chapter 21.77 of the revised ordinances of the City of Watertown regarding wireless telecommunications towers and facilities. Justin?
Thank you, Mayor. I will try not to bore the body here with all the gory details of this particular ordinance. But suffice it to say, the genesis of this is increasing discussion amongst various communities in the state of South Dakota regarding requests received by a company called Mobility that is going out as sort of a headhunter trying to find spaces to put up wireless telecommunications facilities throughout communities in South Dakota. Now, the issue has sprung up as a result of their requests, which they're obviously entitled to make, about where the city's zoning authority, the extent of that, and how that matches up with federal authority that supervenes state and local authority on the issue. So this ordinance is meant to clear that up somewhat. Basically, take the existing chapter that we have regulating wireless telecommunications towers, which I will admit is quite substantial relative to most other communities in the state, and basically update it to current federal regulation standards. Basically, what the feds allow us to regulate, this attempts to do. And to that end, we have changes to Chapter 2177. The first section there is really mostly a response to federal rulemaking here in the last 2 to 3 years that requires cities essentially approve certain types of wireless facilities that are attached to existing wireless facilities, wireless towers. They're called co-locations for anybody who's interested. And this is meant to reflect what's currently in federal law that binds states and localities in terms of accepting the siting, the placement of wireless facilities. Subparts 5 and 6, however, deal with the other theme that is embodied in these ordinance changes, which is to take what zoning authority we do have and make sure that we have it in ordinance. And what I mean by that is we didn't before have zoning restrictions based, really the placement of these towers were not restricted to certain zones as they have been in certain communities in South Dakota. This now does that. There is an underscoring of the need for these telecommunications companies to consult with municipal utilities whenever there is a request to site their facilities onto municipal utility poles, etc. There's also an emphasis later on in these changes on stealth design to ensure that whatever is ultimately placed, be it a tower, be it a co-located facility snapped onto an existing tower or water tower, that it is not designed to look, to basically comport with local standards, to not look like some sort of enormous metal monolith, something that's more low-key. And this is in keeping, again, with what other communities have adopted and is within what federal law allows. So with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions.
How do you ask questions?
I know it's...
Justin, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I did get some schooling on this issue on the Planning Commission, but it's been some years ago. Can we, if need be, can we require monopole type structures in the community? I don't know how much power that we have as a community is left after the federal guidelines come into play.
Sure. Well, I can say that what the federal guidelines in their change here a few years back, and I should add, there is a rulemaking currently with the FCC to relook at a good chunk of this. So there's the potential that the FCC might relax this somewhat and allow for greater local control of siting these towers. But what happened 3 years ago was the FCC basically said for a certain type of co-located facility, the city can't object. If it is applied for at a city, which is basically a co-location, basically you attach an antenna to an existing tower, and if it doesn't alter the shape of it too much, if it doesn't impact the structure too much, then it fits the criteria and it thus automatically must be approved. The city can't object. As for monopole design versus dipole or what have you, I haven't seen anything specific to, prohibiting or anything saying that it has to be monopole or not, or something that would prohibit the regulation of that. The big concerns are aesthetics and structural integrity, I haven't seen anything that would necessarily, from the feds, say, we can't require monopole. Certainly, that's something I have not seen. I can do some additional research to verify that, but.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, I do. I can I ask one more, Mayor? I'm sorry. What other? What is the criteria? Who's going to look at this and make a decision as to the aesthetics of a specific request for a tower?
Sure,
for placement. And I know that there are setback issues, and I mean some communities go so far as you got to dress them up like a pine tree.
Yeah, and
seriously,
that is a concept that kind of gets to stealth design a bit. I mean, you don't have to go that whole direction. That's maybe an extreme example, but
I'm not saying that we would do that.
Yeah. But. I think the language incorporates elements of stealth design, not but who would make this determination is either the Board of Adjustment or the administrative official, and in practical terms, it would be the administrative official. Because these decisions need to be done relatively quickly. That automatic approval process, the city has a 60-day what they call shot clock on that. So if the city basically, once it gets an application that asserts that automated fast-track process, the city has 60 days, and Ken would look at that and see if, well, no, it doesn't meet the criteria, so that doesn't apply. We can now apply our aesthetics, zoning ordinances, and the like.
Okay, then. That was the first reading. We'll have more later. Okay, item 13, approval of insurance policies and authorization for payment of premiums for general liability, public officials liability, auto liability and physical damage, law enforcement liability, buildings and contents, equipment property damage, and equipment breakdown, boiler and machinery coverage. And we've got a packet of information, but Kristen's going to walk us through it.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, just a brief kind of overview. The premium increased 6.5%. That was mainly due to the ball fields and then the rec center, or I should say the wellness center, going on to insurance. There was also a couple large pieces of equipment. I know one was the big at the street department that removes all the snow. I don't know the technical word. So that was probably the biggest reason for the increase. We also changed this year how we split between the utilities and the city. We're now going 60-40 split. So that's a little bit why you'll see the city's premium higher than it was last year. And there again, the biggest...
I'm sorry, what was that split last year?
Last year, I believe that Public Assurance Alliance, they're the ones who split it, and it was because they were trying to break out kind of the equipment and the property, and it gets a little kind of hazy there. So then last year we determined that at this point we would just split it flat 60-40.
So I know that was kind of a bone of contention with the utilities.
Yeah.
Last
Yep.
year.
And this is what was decided last year. So this is the first year that you're going to see that, and thus the reason our premium went up quite a bit was partly that. And then the biggest reason was really the $24 million Prairie Lakes Wellness Center going on to insurance. So I'm asking that you guys approve the insurance and authorize us to pay a special check in the amount of $326,463.13 for the city's portion. And if you have any questions, I can.
Second.
Discussion?
I've got a question again. Has this been communicated to the utilities, I mean, as far as their portion already?
Yep. They've seen this.
Okay.
Yep. So.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? I'll entertain council action. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item 15, authorization for the mayor to sign a joint powers agreement with the South Dakota Office of Attorney General for drug enforcement purposes. Scott?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. The reason why I'm here tonight is to address the fact that one of the fundamental duties of the Watertown Police Department is to prevent harmful substances, illegal substances such as marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine from entering our community and being consumed in our community. It's our desire to enter into a contract or an agreement with the South Dakota Attorney General's office to basically essentially allow one of our officers to become part of a drug task force team in Northeast South Dakota. Through this agreement, our officer would inherit powers, law enforcement powers, to go outside the city limits of Watertown and assist the drug enforcement team in controlling those substances, hopefully from ever making it into Watertown, and preventing it from being in the surrounding areas of Watertown that eventually becomes harmful to us. So that's basically what we're looking for tonight, is just simply your approval for us to become involved with a drug task force in Northeast South Dakota, sponsored or through an agreement with the Attorney General's office.
Mayor, could I raise a point of privilege?
Please do.
Just to add a little bit to what Captain said, you know, I did review this agreement and talked it over with Attorney General's counsel, and everything looks really squared away. The responsibilities for the law enforcement officer who is given the Special Attorney General designation, you know, the work, I think it's fair to say, Captain, is directed by the Attorney General's office. The responsibility in terms of wages and insurance and the like is still retained by the City of Watertown, but I did receive confirmation from the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance that our insurance will cover our officers who serve under this designation. So.
Scott, do we send people out to Sturgis when you talk about stopping drugs from coming in?
We do have officers that work in Sturgis for the motorcycle rally, but that's a different function than what this is designed to do.
I know that. I'm just wondering if we do go out there.
They are basically deputized by the Sturgis Police Department in order to work that event. So that's kind of what we're looking at here, is to be deputized or given law enforcement authority through the South Dakota Attorney General's office. And like Attorney Getz mentioned, the city will still, you know, maintain salaries and liabilities and all that kind of thing that we normally would have. So this is just an opportunity to work outside the city of Watertown.
Scott, I have a question. Is what is their scope of what's their work area? Is it unlimited to the state? Is it just like a 4-county radius? Or?
Yeah, I think it's more designed to be Northeast South Dakota, and the reason for that is there's a knowledge base that you have to have of the area that you're working in, whether that's contacts of, you know, some informants that you might have working for you, or just general knowledge of areas that you know have the presence of an illegal substance. So I would say it'd be pretty much local, or, you know, an immediate 30 miles or so from Watertown.
Okay. And then do you have a person that is already, is this an existing lease or existing agreement, or is this a new lease or agreement that is in place?
Yeah, good question, Adam. This would be an existing person assigned to the Watertown Police Department that is in the business of working drug activities. So we're not looking to hire anybody new or change anybody's job description or anything at the police department. This is a person that's currently in this capacity of working narcotics in the Watertown area police department.
Okay, thank you.
Scott, would they be working then with others from other Northeast South Dakota? How big is the group?
That's probably yet to be determined, but at this point in time, anytime that a DCI special investigator related, we do have a DCI investigator at the police department that does work narcotics. So that officer, in addition to our officer, along with, let's just say there was an issue that came up in Hamlin County or Clark County or Dade County, more than likely they might come to this you know, this task force and say, hey, I've got this drug problem in my community. I know it's connected to Watertown. Sometimes what originates in Watertown ends up in Clark County, and vice versa. What starts in Clark County ends up in Watertown. So it's just a good idea for investigators to not restrict themselves to one geographical area and to be able to span out and have better results of their drug enforcement activities by being more knowledgeable in the area, not just city.
Scott, I have a question. If this takes all of their time that they're invested in this particular activity, how is there a need to replace that person then? for other activities that he was responsible prior to that?
Yeah, I would say we're not looking to add any additional person at this point in time, or into the future for next year. That, as I mentioned, he is currently assigned to work drugs and drug activity, drug-related cases, and he is currently assisting the DCI agent housed at the Watertown Police Department with drug cases. So I don't really see his work duties changing, other than the fact that this gives him authority and liability concerns and all that kind of thing. Takes care of some of those housekeeping issues.
Just wanted to make a quick comment that, in my experience with working with a couple other agencies, is whenever we do something like this where we spread it out and give people a little more authority and knowledge and things like that, it has kind of a cascading effect of not only do we stop drugs, we stop human trafficking, we stop a lot of different types of activities that are all intertwined with this. And so I really like the idea that, we're going to get to know our whole area better, and by being familiar with it, you can see right away when something, okay, this isn't right. And usually if there's a scratch at the surface, there's something below. So
information sharing is huge in law enforcement, and we have to be able to share information from one agency to another to try and get ahead of some of these issues that can be harmful to our communities.
May I have a motion and second for authorization?
I'll motion.
Moved by Lalum, second by Solom. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Item number 16, authorization for the mayor to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Game Fish and Parks for the replacement of boat docks at Jackson and City Parks. Jay?
Yes, the funding for these projects is included in our 2017 budget. And the state has an ongoing grant with the federal government. It's called Sports Fish Restoration. We called it the DJ grant. And that's ongoing, that they get from year to year, and they use that for the maintenance and development of all their public water access or boat launch areas across the state of South Dakota. Being the city and Jackson Park properties are owned by the city and not covered under the state grant, this MOU allows the Game Fish and Parks to spend sports fish restoration dollars outside of their grant for the benefit of public fishing and boating. So, and it's a 75-25% match. We will pay 100% of the docks, and then we will, once the project is completed, we will be reimbursed the 75%.
Jay, I have a question. Are we just replacing existing ones? Was the last ones done under the same agreement?
Yes, I'm sure they were, and this is the same agreement as we used when we put in the fishing piers at 3rd Avenue Ponds and McLaughlin Pier. So that's the same type of grant.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion and second for authorization. Motion by Roby, second by Mantee. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Is there any old business?
Mayor, I do. Shane, probably a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I had sent you an email, and I think, Sarah, I copied you on it, in regards to the corner of 19th Street and 14th Avenue and the mowing that is of concern there. I continue to get phone calls on that. I believe what was stated a couple of weeks ago was that they had planned to do some spraying in that area, and I believe that's been done, at least what I'm being told it's been done. But I'm not sure what the plan is after that. I mean, the spray's not going to knock the weeds down, and my understanding is they couldn't get in there to mow because of rocks. Is that right? You remember, Shane?
Well,
It's pretty rough.
are we talking up at the
The southwest corner of 14th Avenue and 19th Street. It's Conradi-owned property, I believe.
Okay.
That thing right there.
Yep. I guess not making an excuse, but usually our code enforcement officer handles those kind of things, and we don't have one of those currently, so we've kind of been taking calls randomly from both the engineering department and the building official. Been trying to address those as they come forward. I will bring this up tomorrow morning, and we'll.
It is bad. It's very bad.
We'll address it at our planning and zoning meeting in the morning.
Take the next step, and it's probably
right.
I don't know what we've done so far to get the spray done.
Right.
Did we do anything formal?
I don't believe so.
Not
that I recall.
I think a history on this one is there's a lot of follow up with the landowner, and eventually it gets done. I will tell you that you are both invited to join this gentleman on his back patio, so you can look at the weeds and have coffee some morning, because it really is uninviting. It's bad. It needs to get taken care of. We have the ability to do that, and I would ask that we make every effort to get that done in an expedient manner if we can.
And there are a lot of noxious weeds in that. And Ken has told me that it got sprayed last Saturday. For some reason, I'm involved in that one too, but Ken said that, but Ken said they sprayed it last Saturday, but they hand sprayed it. They didn't spray it with a sprayer, a tractor sprayer or something.
So there's still live spots?
No, it's just, there are just so many weeds out there that the people that control their own are saying, next year we start all over because these weeds are going to sprout.
And these weeds out there right now are 3+ feet high, 3 to 4 feet high.
Not only that, it'll hold mosquitoes and everything else out there as well, so.
Okay. Any other old business? New business?
I just have a comment. The list keeps growing here in Watertown. I'd just like to recognize John Foley. Lost another good civic leader here recently, and thoughts and prayers to his family.
Another thing, I got a chance to view the Lions heating place down there. That is a fantastic place. It's just beautiful. And they're planning on weddings, and they're planning on all sorts of stuff. It's really nice, so if you want a tour of it, call Tom, because he's proud of it and he's glad to give you a tour.
All right. Other new business? Any liaison member reports? Okay, we will have an executive session this evening in order to discuss and consult with legal counsel on contractual matters and employee negotiations. We do not expect to take action when we come out. Do I need to adjourn? Okay, a motion and second to adjourn? No? Oh, to go into executive session. Gotcha.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by, okay, Lallam and Mantee.
Huh?
All in favor? All in favor? Okay. We are in executive session.
Nice.